We had discussed about the two types of bacteria which form the kingdom Monera in the introduction to this particular kingdom. Now, what we are going to study next is that what class of bacteria would be classified into this particular level of classification. Now, so much of class and classification, what you have to learn is that what is there which is what is the characteristic basically which makes the bacteria suitable to be classified under Eubacteria or Archaebacteria. That also we had discussed, but now we are going to consider it with examples, specific examples that we have. So, first of all, let us deal with Archaebacteria. Now, what is there in Archaebacteria? We had broken the word. Archae means ancient, bacteria means the prokaryotic form that we have around us, which would be a prokaryotic cell. Basically, we deal with those bacteria which are going to survive in those conditions where we would consider them otherwise hostile for any life form. So, we have those extreme conditions, and it is believed that such conditions were present in the primitive earth. So, that is why these bacteria are the most ancient ones, and hence is their name Archaebacteria. What we are going to see over here is that there are three types of such hostile atmospheres or habitats, to be very specific. Those three hostile habitats, and what would be the bacteria whichsoever would be residing over there named as. And I must tell you that in understanding this kingdom Monera in terms of examples, it is better you restrict yourselves to the understanding of genus instead of getting into species, because the entire genus somehow specifies what would be the characteristic of that particular bacteria. Now, in terms of Archaebacteria, the first one that we have is Halophiles. Now, whenever I say Halophiles, I am referring to a condition which is extremely salty. Okay, so Halophiles refers to extremely salty conditions, and these are the bacteria. The example is Halococcus and Teachingbharat Halophilus. As I told you, you have to restrict yourself to the genus understanding, genus level understanding. So, it is not necessary to remember the specific epithets in totality. What you have to remember is what would be the names of the bacteria, the genus names, and Halophiles would survive in extremely salty conditions. Now, why they are considered to be living in hostile conditions? Because normally in salty conditions, highly salty we can say, it is seen and observed that most of the life forms are restricted. So, those bacteria which could survive in those conditions, they would be termed as halophile. The next category is of thermoacidophiles. Now, this philes word is somewhat related to those phile. Phile word is for those organisms which would love the given condition. So, the given condition is thermoacidophile. Thermo word is for heat and acidophile is for acidic condition. So, basically we find these bacteria in hot springs. Alright. Now, talk about hot springs. There are certain geysers and hot springs which originate from the surface itself. There is hot water which is coming out of the ground, and that hot water, why it is hot, that is again your geographical knowledge, that the core of earth is really hot. Whatever water is close to it, it is almost at boiling point, and it comes out, pressure crevices are created and the water comes out. We do not have to get into that, but what we have to get into is that there is a life form which could survive in those conditions as well, and that life form is the thermoacidophiles, Archaebacteria yet again. The example is Pyrococcus. Now, over here this word is very simple. Pyro word is used for heat. So, we have Pyrococcus, we have Thermus aquaticus. Why I have taken the example of Thermus aquaticus? The reason behind it is that this bacteria has been used extensively in biotechnological processes. You would study about it, but just you have to remember this name. And moving on to methanogens. Now, methanogens are those type of bacteria which would be present in marshy areas. Okay, the marshy areas, like you have some sort of you have mangroves, they are marshy areas. Mangroves is not the right example. When we talk about sewage plants, those where the sewage treatment is done, we take into consideration the methanogens. When we talk about single cell proteins, then also we consider few of these bacteria. Now what are these? The name again suggests that they would be present in the conditions where you are going to find methane. Now methane is not useful gas for our survival otherwise for living organisms. If a human being is put in a condition where there is a lot of methane, he or she would not survive. We do study in our younger classes that people die in marshy areas, that is due to the presence of methane, and these bacteria, they can survive in those conditions. So basically these bacteria are the pro case of life surviving in the marshy areas, and the example is Methanococcus and Methanogenium. So over here it is very simple. If you can't remember any name, try to remember that everything we are discussing over here is coccus, and they are in the coccoid form. We have Halococcus, halo has been derived from here. We have Pyrococcus, as I told you, it is from the thermal word, heat word, and over here it is yet more simpler, Methanococcus and Methanogenium. Now we are going to move next to eubacteria. As told earlier and repeating, I am repetition of what has been told earlier. I am telling you again that U means true. True bacteria. Now when we talk about true bacteria, it is with reference to those bacteria that we talk about. If we talk about their economic importance, if we talk about those pathogenic bacteria, if we talk about those photosynthetic bacteria, all the bacteria that we have around us, which actually are bacteria, not those which are Archaea bacteria, we talk about eubacteria. Now eubacteria can be further classified and well understood if it is seen in these classifications. Okay. First of all, I am going to come to mycoplasmas before coming over there. What are mycoplasmas? Now very simple thing, mycoplasmas are usually saprophytic and parasitic, two things. Okay. Either they are going to be pathogenic, going to disturb somebody's life cycle, or they are going to depend on saprophytic mode of nutrition. And these mycoplasmas, they do not have cell wall. One thing. Second thing you have to remember is that they can survive without oxygen. That means they are anaerobic. And third thing, another name for these is PPLO, means the PPLO, pleuropneumonia like organisms. They are known as mycoplasmas. There are many types of diseases which are caused by mycoplasmas, and they do not have a cell wall. Alright, they have that cell membrane is present, but cell wall, well defined cell wall was one of the characteristics of bacteria, and that is not present in case of mycoplasmas, and they do survive without oxygen. Coming to the main classification, these mycoplasmas, they can come under heterotrophs, and heterotrophs would be those bacteria which are going to be dependent on some other organism for their nutritional requirements. They could either be holozoic, they are going to consume the organism directly, but you can make it out that because this bacteria is so small and it is prokaryotic, how can it devour some other organism? All it can do is it is going to consume other bacteria, but that is also not a clear-cut case. What we have in these cases is that they are going to be pathogenic, they are going to depend on somebody else's efforts for nutritional procurement. And the other case is of autotrophs. All the pathogenic bacteria, before we come here, all the pathogenic bacteria that you can think of, some bacteria is causing chlorella, cholera, sorry, it's not chlorella we are going to study, it is an algae, green algae. I was to refer to cholera. Some cause dysentery, some cause diseases, few of them are responsible for causing anthrax in animals, in plants, in humans. Everywhere they are causing havoc by their parasitic nature. Apart from that, they could be coprophilous, that they are feeding on dung, and rest of the heterotrophic modes of nutrition could be seen. And whenever you are thinking about heterotrophs, do keep in mind that these are the simplest form of organisms that could be living. So would be their nutritional procurement. Coming to the autotrophs, you know that autotrophs are those organisms which can make their own food. Now there are two methods in which the food could be made. First is that you are going to take the energy of sunlight. So those bacteria which consume sunlight, not consume, that won't be a correct word, which use sunlight for making their food would be photosynthetic bacteria. And over here when we talk about photosynthetic bacteria, we have a misleading sort of word, that is blue-green algae. Now this blue-green algae we know that it is part of plants. We are discussing the prokaryotic cells over here. So how can this be present over here? This would be a misfit if we have to go according to the name. But the name itself is misleading. It is not the blue-green algae. Basically the photosynthetic bacteria are cyanobacteria. Now you know cyano word is used for bluish green color. Okay, from your knowledge of chemistry, you must be knowing that cyano word is referred for bluish green, that beautiful bluish green color that we have. So blue green algae is not algae basically, it is cyanobacteria. So you are going to learn it in terms of cyanobacteria, which are photosynthetic in nature. And the example for this that you have to remember is, one is nostoc and other is anabina. When we talk about bacteria's economic importance in field of agriculture, we do talk about these two bacteria, cyanobacteria to be very specific. Why? Because they are responsible for nitrogen fixation. And as you will study in detail later on about the plant physiology and various processes which are involved for giving nutrition to the plant, you will be surprised to see that nitrogen, being an important component of all the biomolecules, is not easily available. That means all the eukaryotic cells are unable to take up the nitrogen. It is the prokaryotic cells, only and only the prokaryotic cells, which can take up the atmospheric nitrogen and do its fixation, which is again further taken up by the plants, and then it would be taken up by people like us, so that we make our own proteins. So the photosynthetic autotrophs, which are under eubacteria, they are responsible for nitrogen fixation due to the presence of a particular cell in their colonial forms that is known as heterocysts. So you have to remember this name as well. Heterocysts are present in cyanobacteria, which are responsible for nitrogen fixation. The entire cyanobacteria would look like a sheet. You must have seen those algal blooms which are occurring in the ponds. If you have ever seen a water body, deteriorating water body to be very specific, you would see that bluish green, that green layer, not bluish green, the green layer, and that is known as algal bloom. That is not algae, that is the cyanobacteria. And if you ever got a chance to visit some paddy field, you would find those layers, that greenish layers present in those waters as well, where the water is stagnant. In case of rice fields, that is responsible for nitrogen fixation. That lump of green layer is in the form of filamentous organization, where we have mucilaginous sheath around it, and heterocysts, which are responsible for fixation of nitrogen. Then there is another form of autotrophs which do not use sunlight, but instead they are going to use the chemical energy by breaking or making the bonds. Whatever energy is stored in a chemical bond, they would break it and utilize it for their own nutritional need, and those bacteria are known as chemosynthetic bacteria. You are going to remember the name of sulfobolus as the example of chemosynthetic bacteria. So this is all about the classification of bacteria into Archaea bacteria and eubacteria. What you have to remember is that while Archaea bacteria has been classified in terms of the habitat where the bacteria inhabits, this particular classification of eubacteria, that is further classifying the eubacteria, a greater class of prokaryotes, has been made in terms of the nutritional procurement, that is in the terms of how they take the nutrition. So this is all about Archaea bacteria and eubacteria.